today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about how to negotiate in your marriage and have it be a win for everyone instead of a battlefield. If every disagreement ends the same way, you cave to avoid a fight, or you dig in and make things worse. But disagreement doesn't have to mean fight. It doesn't have to mean a battle. Some men, they don't do that at all. They double down. They confuse dominance for strength, and they shut their partner down. And that's what a lot of people are calling toxic masculinity right now. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and today we're talking about negotiation without capitulation, how to hold the line with love. And that sounds like, even as I said it, negotiation without capitulation, I was like, wow, that's sounds like a John Wayne movie or something. But you can have negotiation without capitulation and still have it be a win-win. All right. What we're really talking about here is how to negotiate for what you feel is important, for what you want and need for yourself and for your family and for your marriage in a way that doesn't compromise you. And one of the reasons why so many of the men who come to me are so frustrated is they have been capitulating and compromising themselves. This is about how to be true to yourself and true to your marital vows and your love for your partner all together. And this builds on the last couple of episodes, which have been about identifying your values and principles. It's been about how to stand for your values and principles and communicate them in a way that's loving and caring, how to build a relationship that feels safe for your wife while not allowing your conversations to slip into territory where you're hurting each other, which is not really what you want in your marriage. If every disagreement ends the same way, you cave to avoid a fight, or you dig in and make things worse, or maybe you give in, blow up, or check out, well, then the chances are you're negotiating and capitulating. You're either capitulating to the enemy or capitulating to yourself. And if your partner's become the enemy, you know right away you've already lost. Well, you can hold your ground and preserve connection with your partner. You can negotiate in a healthy relationship and not have it be about you winning, but have it be about both of you winning. You can stay true to yourself while protecting partnership. We're going to equip men with a mindset and process for relational negotiation that honors both partners' values. That's what this episode's all about. So stay tuned. It's hard to talk about this without talking about the false choice first, which is capitulation or conflict. When you think your only options are to fight or to fold, you've already lost. You're already in a mindset that isn't going to work. A book that I recommend to a lot of couples that'll help you with this mindset concept is called The Power of Ted. A great book. It basically talks about the victim triangle. In the victim triangle, there's the victim, there is the bully, and there is the rescuer. When we are in a capitulation or conflict mindset, we're somewhere in the victim triangle. And that triangle is kind of like a snake eating its own tail. It enables itself. It goes on and on and on and on and on. Most of the couples who come to me are stuck in the victim triangle. The work that we do is to help them step out of the victim triangle into the empowerment dynamic, which is what TED stands for, right? We want you to be personally empowered, and we want your relationship to be empowered. Now, men in recent history have defaulted to appeasing their partner to keep the peace. Happy wife, happy life is what we say. And you know what? There are times when defaulting makes perfect sense. If it's in an area that she knows more about than we do, or that she's got a bigger investment than we do, yeah, you got to pick your fights carefully. I also want to replace that word fights with pick your battlefields. That all the wording, notice that all the wording around disagreement in marriage sounds like warfare. We need a new word for this, right? Because really what we're doing in marriage is we're building synergy. We're going over a bridge together. Right. And the foundation of the bridge is built on shared values. And when we're going over a bridge together, we might always agree about which bridge to take or how fast to go over it or any of those things. Maybe that's part of what needs to be worked out here. But disagreement doesn't have to mean fight. It doesn't have to mean a battle. Some men, they don't do that at all. They double down. They confuse dominance for strength and they shut their partner down. And that's what a lot of people are calling toxic masculinity right now. We talked in the last episode about my way or the highway and what that breeds. Even if you win from that position and you get your way, you don't win because your partner's not emotionally invested. And if your partner's not emotionally invested, then you are going over the bridge alone, buddy. The truth is that both options breed resentment, mistrust, and long-term disconnection. Let's talk about my favorite couple, Brad and Gwen. Gwen wants to take the kids to Disneyland. Who doesn't want to go to Disneyland, right? She doesn't just want to take the kids. She wants to take her parents to Disneyland. She thinks Brad is making mad money. He's a crazy serial entrepreneur. But Brad, with the recent tariff war that's been going on, is a little edgy about money right now, and he doesn't want to spend all that money. But at the same time, Gwen's on him. Brad, you make so much. You're always holding back. You're always keeping it for yourself. When are you going to spend some money on the family? And why should my parents pay for themselves? When they die, if they have any money, we're going to get it anyway. So you might as well pay for them now. It's pay for it now or pay for it later, no matter how you look at it. So Brad gives in. He figures, I'll just carve this money out somewhere else in our budget. And he spends weeks, literally weeks, feeling bitter, withdrawn, and self-critical. They go to Disneyland, and Brad enjoys his time with his kids, but he doesn't talk to Gwen. He is hostile to Gwen's parents, even though he likes them. He unconsciously resents them because Gwen made him pay for them. That's caving in. What Brad needed to learn is that he wasn't avoiding a battle there. Or maybe he was, and actually he didn't. He got into the battle and he let himself be beaten down is what happened. And then he gave in because he didn't want to fight anymore. Brad didn't understand that marital negotiation is not a battlefield. Now, you can approach your marital negotiation like any of the principles of negotiation tell you to. You can ask for 100,000 when you want 10,000 and feel like you're winning. But the truth is that if you're negotiating with your partner that way, and they don't know that you're negotiating with them that way, if it isn't a game, if it's serious, what you're saying is, I don't trust you. And a marriage without trust, it's like a day without sunshine. But seriously, a marriage without trust is emotionally stagnant, right? Negotiation in marriage is not like business negotiation. It's kind of the opposite. Right? In business negotiation, you keep your cards to your chest. You ask for more than you want. Maybe you ask for something you don't even want so that you can settle for something that you do want that doesn't even seem to be on the table. That's a great business negotiation. Don't work in marriage. In marriage, you need to be transparent. You need to be transparent because the contract you entered into was, I'm going to help you succeed as an individual, and you're going to help me succeed as an individual, and our marriage is going to succeed in helping us both succeed individually. And because our marriage is succeeding, our kids are going to succeed. Because our kids are succeeding, we're both going to be individually and marital fulfilled and happy. And when our kids grow up, that contract is going to continue because they're going to have kids, and we're going to be the legacy for our grandchildren. We're going to make sure that there's financial freedom, that our grandchildren get to know each other, even though our kids are living in separate cities. We're going to make sure that our parents leave this world in the same way that we would want to leave this world. You know, we've got an ongoing role together, and we can only operate as partners if we're transparent with each other. That's why this is not like business. You are partners, not nemesis. The truth is, when negotiation feels like war, someone's walking away wounded, no matter who wins. It's not about control, all right? You don't want to control your partner. You want to create clarity and collaboration, because in collaboration, they can bring their strengths to the table. You can bring your strengths to the table. They can do the things they're best at. You can do the things you're best at. Healthy negotiation with a partner starts from shared vision and shared purpose, not opposing positions. Brad's big mistake is that for whatever reason, Gwen does not believe him when he says, Gwen, I'm scared about money right now. A way Brad could have handled this is, Gwen, I'm not going to pay for this right now. We're not going to go to Disney. If you're not going to hear my point of view, I'm not going to spend more than we should, because that means we're not going to have money for other things that we need, like our kids' college. And I'm not going to argue about it because it's not helping either of us. I'm just not going to pay for it. If you have the money, you can pay for it. Or Brad could say, I'm only willing to pay for this right now. And if you have money for the rest, please feel free. I mean, there are a lot of ways that Brad could do that without being a hard ass. True power is about being vulnerable. True power is about taking a stand where it needs to be taken in a way that respects and honors the other person. See one of the previous episodes. You need to know the line between the position you're taking or a preference that you have versus a principle. Right? So in that story that I told you of Brad and Gwen, it's not that he doesn't want to go to Disneyland. It's not that he doesn't want to pay for Gwen's parents. It's that he doesn't want to do it at the expense of a rainy day fund or their kids going to college or their 401k or whatever. But he's got a conflict. In fact, Brad has a conflict of principles. Gwen doesn't trust him. And so he's trying to prove that he really loves her by giving her what she wants. And by doing that, he validated her concern or her belief that he was holding back money that he actually had. And he was holding back money that he actually had. It was money that they had agreed they were going to use for other things. He didn't really explain that to her, or she didn't believe it when he explained it to her. In fact, in an instance like that, you're almost better off sitting down and talking about, you know what, let's stop talking about money. Let's talk about why you don't trust me. I'm almost better off getting that on the table. It might be that the real negotiation is, how can I get you to believe me and trust me more? Or if you're not going to believe me and trust me, please forgive me if I can't give you what you want right now, because I am where I am with this. Not, I am where I am and you're going to do what I want. If you don't know what matters most, everything feels like a fight, and that's a fact. And that's really what happened to Brad, right? He didn't realize that what matters most is the fact that his wife just doesn't trust him. She didn't realize what matters most is that he really is concerned about their future. You need to clarify your non-negotiables. You need to clarify your values and principles and personal boundaries. A lot of episodes preceding this one about that, so I'm not going to go too deep with it. You need to separate them from your position or your preferences about how things should be, the things that you care about, but you could flex on. So Brad really can't flex on money for college because that's a really important value for him. He could flex on how or when the trip to Disney happens. There are a lot of ways that he could have worked that through. Invite her to do the same. Brad could have invited Gwen to be more flexible. He could have said to her, hey, listen, I'm willing to work with you on this, but you need to understand it's the kid's future. You may not trust me, you may not believe me, but work with me on this. Being willing to give in the areas that you can give and asking them to give in the areas that they can give without compromising yourselves creates mutual clarity and respect. Here's a tool. I want you to write out 3 things that you will always stand for and 3 things that you're always willing to work through together. So these are 3 things that you won't compromise on and 3 things that you will compromise on. What would some examples be? 3 things that you won't compromise on. I won't compromise on the safety of my family. I won't compromise on my children's future, their financial freedom in terms of education and opportunity. And I won't compromise on emotional safety in our household. 3 things that you might be willing to compromise on. I will compromise on the way that money is spent, as long as these other things I won't be compromised are not compromised on. I might agree to having a house somewhere different than I thought I would be good or right if we have the money for it, if there's benefit for everyone involved. I'm open to change. I could compromise on vacations. I could compromise on parties. I can compromise on time with the children. Not that I won't. It's not a choice. I'm not saying I would compromise on yes, time with the children, no, but how much and when could be compromises. In fact, those are things that I think my partner might do better than me, to be honest. When you speak with strength and speak with softness. All right. In the last episode, we talked about what it's like to build a foundation of emotional honesty that isn't angry or frustrated, that isn't combative. Right? That we want to come from that place and maintain that place. See, the truth is, you don't have to be loud to be heard or understood, and you don't have to be cold to be respected. This is really important. In the story I told you about Brad and Gwen last episode, Brad used a lot of I statements. I statements are, I'm feeling this feeling when this situation happens because it reminds me of something in my childhood or whatever, or because I'm afraid, or also use calm body language. You want to sit with your back straight, but not in an aggressive stance. You don't want to be hunched over. You want your body language, try not to be crossing your arms. You want your body language to be open, but is that the word? Open, but strong is probably the word I'm looking for. You want to validate her concerns before presenting yours. You want to make sure that you not just validate her concerns. It's really important that my wife uses this expression. She says, you don't just want to know what it's like to walk in someone's shoes. You want to know what it would be like to walk in it if you were them, walk in it with them as if you were them before you present your perspective. If you really understand where someone's coming from and what it feels like to walk in their shoes, to live their life, to have their fears and hopes and dreams, then you can present your concerns with a lot more sensitivity to what might trigger them and what might be appealing to them. This is very strategic what I'm telling you here. I'm telling you, before you negotiate, imagine where she comes from and why. Had Brad imagined why this was so important to Gwen in advance, he might have figured out another way to do this. It might not have been Disneyland. Maybe there would be a less expensive trip, one that met the amount of money they had earmarked for holidays, where they could take Gwen's parents and kids and still show that they're invested in them. That was really what Gwen wanted. Own your emotion without projecting blame. As men, we tend to avoid hurt, sad, alone, and we tend to cover it over with frustrated and angry. So inevitably, when we don't own our hurt and our sadness or our sense of aloneness, any of those kind of victim-y feelings, we don't own them and really get where it's coming from, what it reminds us of in our childhood, why we might be having more emotion than the situation calls for. And then we get angry or frustrated, it turns into blame. We take our hurt and put it on them. You made me take you to Disney and spend the kids' money, and I'm so upset with you. The kids' college is ruined because of you. That's what Brad could have said, maybe even did say. What Brad could have said is, look, I know budget conversations really stress you out, and I know you think that I'm sitting on a stockpile of money and that I'm super cheap. The truth is that I feel anxious, not just about money. I feel anxious that we're not on the same page about this. I'd really like to have that time with your parents and our kids together, and I'd like to pay for it. Let's work out a way that we can do this and have it be a win for everyone. What do you say, Gwen? And who knows, maybe Gwen would have tested that first. Maybe Gwen would have said, yeah, that's just what you say when you're trying to get me to do something I don't want to do. And Brad's opportunity there would be to say, I can see why you feel that way because I've been that way in the past, but I want you to know that today, I really am, with what's going on with the economy, I really am concerned, and I only have so much money available right now if I'm not picking our own pockets in the future. And if she goes on, he can say, you know what, I don't want to have this kind of conversation with you. We can revisit it when we can both be calm. Or I'm getting upset. If you're going to have this kind of conversation, it's super important that you pick the right time and moment, right? As guys, what we love to do is say, Friday at 3 p.m., we're talking about this. But sometimes Friday at 3 p.m. is the worst time. She's just picked the kids up from school. It's been a hard day. She's busy. She's freaked out. You want to wait till you're both feeling calm and safe. Maybe the kids are put to bed before you have a negotiation. And you may not even want to finish the negotiation. You may just want to start it. Look, you wouldn't do surgery in a boxing ring, so don't try and negotiate when you're feeling emotionally flooded or when she is. Schedule the hard conversations with care. Agree on some ground rules. Maybe you want ground rules like no yelling, interrupting, or walking out. Revisit, don't rehash, and pause if needed. Return when you're both feeling grounded, like you've had your emotions and you can talk about them without them having you. I want you to think about, here's your challenge. I want you to think about one area that you need to negotiate on in the future. And I want you to think about what is really important to you about that as a principle. Principle is like a 10,000 foot view thing. Like for Brad, there were several principles at play. There's the principle of protecting my children's future. There's the principle of also in conflict was the principle of I really want to have a good vacation with my kids and my wife's family. These things were coming head to head. But because he wasn't in touch with the principles, he was sure that the only thing was to make the parents pay or whatever. He wasn't willing to look at options. So I want you to think about one challenge you have. To think about 10,000 feet. What are the principles? What are her principles? What are your principles? And then from that stance, think about how might we have a win for both of us where all of our principles come into alignment. And choose something like small or medium level. Don't go for a big picture one. Don't go for something like money. Okay? Maybe it's about weekend plans or something like that. Clarify your line and make sure you remain willing to listen. Use I statements. Use committed listening. Go to Rich in Relationship if you need to learn more about those things. In the meantime, I want you to think about, in previous episodes, I talked about what would it be like to be in a community. And I'm going to challenge you here. We're building a community of men right now who are have a shared ambition for their individual families. And the beauty of this is that they're not in competition with each other. They're not fighting each other. They're uplifting each other in a shared ambition. Think about, would something like that benefit you? I just want you to think about that. And in the meantime, have a wonderful day and an awesome tomorrow.